that a man spent millions of dollars visiting 50 doctors, but the person who finally saved his life was a waitress without a medical degree? This story will completely change your perspective on healing and human compassion. Imagine having all the money in the world, but dying slowly with no one able to help you. That was Daniel's reality, a 53-year-old business magnate. On the outside, this man looked like he had it all figured out. 3 Fortune 500 companies, magazine covers, and auditoriums packed with people waiting to hear his wisdom. But inside, he was fading away. It started subtly, a tiredness that wouldn't disappear with rest, migraines that struck like unexpected storms. His stomach rejected almost any food. Nights became a nightmare of insomnia and cold sweats. Then things got worse. His arms and legs began to go numb. He would wake up shaking, drenched in sweat, seeing things that weren't there. Talking grew difficult, as if his tongue weighed a ton. Walking just 2 blocks left him breathless. For 4 long years, Daniel became a medical pilgrim. Boston, Germany, India. World-renowned neurologists, functional medicine experts, alternative healers. Each appointment cost thousands. Every experimental treatment drained his bank account. 50 doctors, 50 chances for answers, and all ended the same. Your tests are normal, we'll do more tests. Can you imagine the frustration? Having all the money in the world, but feeling your body fall apart while experts just shrug. His marriage broke apart. His children kept their distance, uncomfortable with the shadow of the father they once knew. The man who once commanded boardrooms now struggled to remember basic names. Daniel had begun to accept his fate until a gray Wednesday in Chicago. He had just left yet another frustrating doctor's visit. An elite endocrinologist had repeated the same empty words as always. Daniel wandered the streets, hungry but with no appetite, exhausted but unable to rest. That's when he saw the worn-out sign for Faith Diner, a restaurant that had seen better days. Scratched tables, chipped mugs, the scent of burnt toast mixed with something that could only be described as persistent hope. Daniel stepped inside, not because the place was inviting, but because he no longer cared where he ended up. He sat in a back booth expecting his usual loneliness along with his coffee. But then she arrived. She was 27, with honey-colored eyes that seemed to see past appearances, and an apron stained from a busy morning shift. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her smile was tired but genuine. The smile of someone who had served many broken souls. "Coffee?" she asked, the pot already in hand. "Sure," Daniel muttered, avoiding eye contact as he'd learned to do. But she didn't just pour the coffee and move on. Something about Daniel's posture stopped her. She tilted her head slightly and asked, with a gentleness he hadn't heard in years, "Are you okay?" That question disarmed him completely. Doctors had asked about symptoms, about pain, but no one, absolutely no one, had asked if he was okay. Not as a patient, not as a human being. Daniel looked up for the first time in months and whispered, "No, I'm not okay." And then something extraordinary happened. She didn't offer home remedies or amateur diagnoses. She sat across from him for just a minute and asked, "What's going on?" For the first time in 4 years, Daniel spoke without any medical filter. He told her about the pain no one could explain, the confusion growing each day, the doctors who saw him as a fascinating puzzle instead of a suffering person. Rosa didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix him with easy advice. She just listened, truly listened. When Daniel finished, she said something no one else had said. "That sounds terrifying." Then she added, "Have you ever thought that it's not just your body falling apart? Maybe your spirit needs healing too?" "Are you a therapist?" Daniel asked, surprised. Rosa smiled. "Nope, I'm a waitress who's served a lot of broken people." That conversation changed everything. Daniel came back the next day, and the next. The same table, the same waitress, the same coffee that tasted of possibility. Slowly, he learned about her story. No college degree, working 2 jobs to support her ill mother. She'd once dreamed of studying psychology, maybe opening a shelter for women in need. But life had other plans. Ironically, Daniel began to look forward to those morning conversations more than his medical appointments. In a world of sterile offices and jargon, she offered something money couldn't buy: genuine humanity. She remembered which foods made his symptoms worse. She could read from his posture if he'd had a bad night. She never pushed him, she just kept showing up. Then, on a rainy afternoon, Daniel came in worse than ever. He collapsed at the table, trembling, pale as a sheet. His hands were cold, his eyes glassy. "I can't feel my legs," he whispered. Rosa panicked, but then something clicked in her memory. She had seen this before. Years ago, her younger brother had been on the verge of death, with similar erratic neurological symptoms that no one could trace. It turned out to be mercury poisoning. The doctors had overlooked it for months. An herbalist in New Mexico had suggested tests for heavy metals. Her brother had been slowly poisoning himself with contaminated fish and old toothpaste. "Daniel," she said, leaning forward, "have you ever been tested for mercury or heavy metal poisoning?" He blinked, confused. "No, why would I?" She hesitated, aware of how wild it sounded. "I know I'm not a doctor, but please, just ask them for those tests. Just once." Daniel laughed weakly. "You want me to ask a Harvard-trained specialist to run tests based on a waitress's hunch?" She didn't flinch. "I want you to ask because you've tried everything else, and because I care." It took weeks of encouragement, but with nothing left to lose, Daniel finally requested a full panel for heavy metals. The results were devastating and illuminating. His mercury levels were 6 times the safe limit. Years of eating high-end seafood, unregulated supplements, and old dental amalgams had slowly poisoned his system. His symptoms weren't a mystery, they were a textbook case of heavy metal poisoning. No elite specialist had thought to check. None of the renowned doctors had truly listened, except Rosa. Detoxification protocols started immediately. Radical dietary changes, supervised chelation, elimination of exposure sources. Within weeks, Daniel began to recover. His strength returned gradually. His vision cleared. The numbness disappeared like morning fog. The nightmares that plagued him for years finally stopped. The day he realized he could walk 2 blocks unassisted, he wept as he hadn't since childhood. Months later, flowers in hand and color back in his cheeks, Daniel returned to Faith Diner. But Rosa was gone. She had quit without warning, left no note, no goodbye. The manager handed him a folded napkin she'd left behind. "You reminded me that, no matter who we are, we all need someone who believes in us. I didn't save you, Daniel. You saved yourself the moment you let someone else in. Thank you for letting me be that person. Go and do the same for others." So, Daniel never saw Rosa again, but he carried her spirit with him always. He founded the Faith Foundation, named after the diner and the woman who changed his life. The organization offers emotional support, peer listening, and funding for alternative diagnostic testing for undiagnosed patients. It connects medical professionals with real people who understand the value of compassion as much as credentials. Now, Daniel speaks at hospitals, conferences, and universities, not just about healing, but about humanity. I spent millions on 50 doctors, he tells audiences, but it was a waitress with no medical degree who saved my life, not intentionally, but sincerely. His message is simple, but revolutionary. Sometimes the answer isn't another scan, another test, another prescription. Sometimes it's in a cup of hot coffee, an unspoken question, an open heart, and someone who sees you, not as a patient, but as someone worth saving. This story teaches us something profound about the power of genuine human connection. In our obsession with technology and specialization, we sometimes forget that true healing requires more than precise diagnoses. It needs someone who sees your suffering and stays with you through it. Rosa had no medical credentials, but she had what many professionals have lost: the ability to see the person behind the patient. Her simple question, "Are you okay?" opened a door that years of specialist consultations had kept closed. Kindness heals. Compassion transforms. Sometimes a waitress without a title can do what $1 billion cannot. Next time you meet someone who's struggling, remember Daniel's story. You don't have to be an expert to make a difference. You just have to be willing to see, listen, and stay. If this story touched your heart, like and share it with someone who needs to remember the power of human compassion. Subscribe for more stories celebrating the best in humanity, and let me know in the comments, have you ever had someone in your life who changed everything simply by genuinely caring? Because at the end of the day, we all need someone to believe in us, and any of us can be that someone for another person.